Hi, here we have a non-professional tomato crop treated with biodynamized water. These tomatoes were planted beginning of April. The previous years, we would get plants up to that height, like these, which were planted 15 days later. On our first plantation, treated with the biodynamized water, we noticed that the plants grow unusually high for our first trial. We have seen the full potential of the plant during fruiting. We have tomato vines that we were not used to see, clusters of fruits, a very dynamic blossom, a very well-structured plant, very strong, with dark colors. And this isn't due to an excessive mineral fertilization because we have barely done any enrichment. Besides a basic liming and a patent Kali treatment, nothing else.
Alors justement, si on parle au niveau de la fertilisation,
talking about fertilization, is there something you used to do that you don't have to do anymore? Before, we used to lime and apply patent Kali, but 15 to 20 days after transplanting, we systematically had to add mineral fertilizer with a bit of nitrogen to help the plant develop. Whereas this time, we deliberately didn't. We have just started to use this process. It's been nearly 2 months. We have decided to generalize this technique on our entire farm without necessarily going through an agronomic testing phase where we would have been able to compare the results with and without the treatment, because we have immediately been able to see the energy the plants had to develop. It was very noticeable on aromatic plants. Our aromatic plants were already free from any chemicals, but from the sowing, when the treatment starts and then continues at different points of development of the plant, so every 10 days, we've had noticeable results. We haven't had any issues with powdery mildew, which we usually have on basil or parsley, and that's why we quickly applied the biodynamized water on our entire farm, flowers and vegetable plants. Talking about sowing, because you do everything yourself, including cuttings, would you tell us if you have noticed any change on thyme cuttings or your seedlings, for example? Before, we would assume our irregularities of our seedlings would be from seeds that might have been a bit old. Even though we renew our seed stock every year, which would imply a high germination rate. Now, we have observed an even seedling growth and a certain strength as well, a vigorous seed from the beginning with a good germination rate, which is very high now. What do you call a very good rate? Do you have a percentage you could give us? Yes, we now have 90 to 95% rate, when before we were at 70-75%. Alright, so about 10% more in average. Well, yes, more like 20% more. And then I think the analysis is visual. Visually, we can see that the plants are more developed than normal, which is unusual. Knowing that here our soil is sandy loam, we could have that behavior in a more or less clay soil. However, here with our soil, the plants are behaving very differently than the previous years. Now, could it be linked to the year? I don't know. So in short, what would be your conclusion? My conclusion? I will persist with this process. I will keep going because I am surprised and I want to confirm my observations. But I am hopeful, thanks to what I have observed so far, especially with accidents we've had. For example, powdery mildew on a grafted cucumber. I didn't throw away any cucumber plant, whereas before I would have needed to use chemicals. However, I didn't throw away a single one of them, and the cucumber took over the powdery mildew. On the aphids attack we've had, I located the nest because I was using the integrated biological protection. This year I didn't use it. I could see aphid nests, but it didn't spread. It didn't extend. They stayed localized, and the surrounding wildlife managed to get rid of it naturally. I haven't had any issues with thrips, even though I have tarragon and lemon verbena. Those aromatic plants seem to have managed regardless, or got rid of it. I don't know how to explain it. That's why I would prefer to wait until I can confirm this over time while I use the biodynamizer. Using the biodynamized water has piqued my employees' interest. They also have noticed an obvious change in the plant's behavior. It brings a certain comfort. We don't need to worry about re-entering deadlines after using chemicals. We used to do chemical treatments on Saturdays afternoon because that would leave us with the weekend while no one is on site. So, to spray water while employees are in the greenhouse does bring up questions. And everyone was very pleased to know that we wouldn't be using chemicals in the greenhouses. We also produce aromatic plants. We can see with the naked eye a very dense product, kind of firm, and most of all, a much more intense flavor from certain plants like basil and parsley. Even with young plants, they taste stronger. Could you tell us more about that cabbage and its color? It's a color we have never seen before. It's the red sky variety, a red cabbage that we have been producing for a long time now. This unusual purple copper, we have never seen that before, along with how firm the leaves are. We never had that either. So, on these, any predators must be very strong and starving to tackle that. Have you seen this firmness on any other plants as well, or on the globality of your products? Yes, on every plant. It seems like the plant has got a certain energy and an extraordinary strength. Even when I look at our potatoes, and the potential of stems, and even the germination of the young plants, it's impressive. Even with the mineral fertilization, we wouldn't get such results. And before, in our greenhouses, we used integrated biological protection. And after stopping it and stopping the use of insecticides and chemicals, we have seen pollinator insects coming back. A ladybird population we didn't have before, not that we could see at least. Although to be fair, as we were using biological protection, we had an approach where observing the existing wildlife is important. So I think that if they were present before, we would have seen it. Now we can clearly see a specific wildlife coming back, little by little. And it's surprising because we have only been using this treatment for 2 months. Our greenhouses have windbreak nets. Our greenhouses have windbreak nets, and I think we will remove them to let the wind go through along with the wildlife.
À la faune sauvage. Voilà.